Side Hustle Show 138, Authority Site Case Study, How an Air Force Flight Surgeon Took His Side Hustle Full-Time.
Welcome to the Side Hustle Show, where aspiring part-time entrepreneurs learn how to turn their side hustle dreams into reality. Because your 9 to 5 may make you a living, but your 5 to 9 makes you alive. And now, your host, Nick Loper.
What's up? Nick Loper here. Welcome to the Side Hustle Show, where if you hang around long enough, your internet friends will start to outnumber your real life friends. Today's show is an awesome case study from an internet friend of mine who, by all accounts, had a really good job, but still managed to build an escape path out of there on the back of his hustle and his own unique authority in the space. Now, I first met Ryan Gray at New Media Expo in 2014, and when I asked him what he did, he told me he was a doctor. And I was like, dude, what are you doing at this weird internet conference? And he explained, hey, I've got this authority site that I'm building, a blog and podcast over at medicalschoolhq.net. And I was like, wow, that sounds fascinating. We've run into each other at several conferences since then. And at Podcast Movement this summer, he mentioned he'd left the Air Force and actually taken medicalschoolhq.net full time. So in this episode, we're going to follow the ideas, action, and results framework to hear how Ryan first came up with the idea for this business, the specific actions he took to grow it, and the results he's been able to achieve in terms of traffic and monetization. All the notes and links are at sidehustlenation.com/138. And while you're there, you can grab a free PDF download with all the highlights and Ryan's top tips from this conversation. Sidehustlenation.com/138. So let's do this.
I started my active duty commitment with the Air Force in Dover, Delaware back in 2010.
Okay.
And for some reason, I have no idea why, but for some reason, I started listening to Internet Business Mastery. I have no idea why I was looking for podcasts. I have no idea why I was listening to business podcasts, entrepreneurial podcasts, but I started listening to Internet Business Mastery.
There was something in there that drew you.
There's something. They had a good hook. But I started listening to that show, and then as most people that are in this space I listened to Pat Flynn. You might have heard his name.
Mm-hmm. We were familiar with passive income.
Yeah, a little bit. But I listened to Pat Flynn, and then I was like, he started talking about this niche site Duel and the security guard training HQ. You might recognize Medical School HQ.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I can have a website with lots of information and make tons of money with AdSense. Why not?
Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, I need to supplement my income as a physician, apparently. Again, I don't know why I was listening to this stuff, but the original, it started kind of because as I was working, I had young airmen coming up to me asking about what it was like to go through medical school, to get into medical school. What was that whole process like? And I had a blast talking to them about it. I would sit there and talk to them for like an hour and a half. And I was realizing that my path to medical school was kind of a rocky one. I had pretty bad premed advising. I had bad advice. My advisor told me not to even apply to medical school because I was a white male. Apparently, white males don't get into medical school.
Really?
And talking to my wife, who's also a physician, she had bad advising as well. She went to an undergrad in Canada. She's from the States, but she went to college in Canada.
Okay.
And she had bad advising as well. And so we started talking, and I said, hey, there's this thing I can do. I can make a website, and we can put a bunch of information on it, and it'll sit there, and it'll make money. And so we registered the domain back in March of 2012 and haven't really looked back since.
Okay, so the site's about 3.5 years old at this point. So there's sounds like a couple years or a year and a half of education time prior to that, saying, hey, learning about this whole online business thing before registering the domain and making the plunge.
Yeah, there was some lead up there and some hesitation and some fears before we actually took the plunge.
What was your initial investment in getting this thing set up?
Oh, I went to GoDaddy and probably spent $30 or $40, maybe a little bit more, for a couple of years of the domain. Okay. Obviously, some hosting, and I went from there. Obviously, there was a huge time commitment, so that was an investment of time.
Yes. To
create the articles. My wife and I at that point were living apart. She was in her residency training. I was in Delaware doing my active duty stuff. Okay. And so on train rides down, she was in Boston. She would take the train down to visit me on weekends, and I would give her homework assignments to type up on her way down. And we got a lot of stuff done that way.
What kind of content were you focusing on? Like focusing on the people in med school or like pre-med college students? What was your kind of focus there?
So we were very scattered at first. We didn't niche down enough at first. So we focused on medical students and pre-med students. So people wanting to get into medical school and those that were already in. And so our message was very scattered. Eventually we settled on just pre-med students. But the content, we focused on content that was more fact-based. There's a very large website that's dedicated to medical students and pre-med and a lot of other health fields. And it's a form-based website. And just there's so much negativity in the forums and lots of trolls and other stuff. And so we wanted to bring a more positive voice with more data-driven information.
Okay. Doctors are being mean to each other?
Pre-meds are being mean to each other.
Oh, okay.
It's a very, very cutthroat.
A little competitive out there. Okay. Interesting. What was so you're creating this content, putting it up on the site. Like how often are you posting?
Oh, we posted as much as we could. Again, we were both working full time, so we were maybe putting stuff up once a week. Okay. I wasn't fancy enough to have a content calendar. As soon as something was ready to go up, I put it up.
No, that's totally fine. I asked the question because some people are like, I post 3 times a day, 5 days. I'm like, that's nuts. And other people are like, you have post whenever I have time to post or whenever I have something to say.
Yeah.
So, no, that's good. That's good to hear. When did you see, did it take a while for people to take off, for this thing to kind of get some traction? Did people discover it right away? Were you saying like, hey, look, there's already this massive forum out there. Why is anyone going to read my stuff? Like, this is a kind of an intimidating, like, this is a very professional niche to enter, to say like, look, I'm going to become the med school authority. And it's like, who gave you permission to do that? I don't know. This is kind of a fascinating one.
Yeah. So there is that self-doubt, right? Cliff Ravenscraft calls it the imposter syndrome, or somebody calls it the imposter syndrome. I know he talks about it. So I have this feeling of, well, I'm just a physician, right? That's the only education I have. I really wasn't on any admissions committees. I'm not trained as a pre-med advisor, but I had this information because I've been through it. And most pre-med advisors haven't gone through it. They're not physicians. And so I had this leg up on them because I knew what it was like. And so yes, there was a lot of hesitation there. There was a lot of fear that people won't believe me because I'm just a physician. But I tried to go out and get other people to give me information as well. So when I started the podcast a little bit later, and I got guests that would kind of help me out in that expert realm. But it took a long time to get the website going, to get some traffic. I'm looking at my analytics right now, and even a year into it, I was still getting less than 500 views a day.
Well, that's quite a bit of traffic, though.
Yeah, nothing like it is now, but back then that was still good for me. And I think there was one month even that I made $100 in AdSense.
Nice. I thought it was on the site like this week. Do you even have AdSense anymore?
Well, you had to turn off your ad blocker if you wanted to see it, but no, I don't. I don't have AdSense anymore. The return wasn't worth it in my mind for the distraction that it was causing.
Okay. So monetizing with AdSense, what's your traffic like today?
Yesterday we had 5,000 or so page views.
Nice.
Yeah. So over the last 30 days or so, we've been consistently getting about 100,000 page views every 30-day mark. Wow.
That's big time, man. Congratulations. That's very cool.
Thank you.
Now, in terms of the growth of this site, the marketing of the site, what did you find was the most effective way to build this? Because everybody starts from scratch to build this thing up to 100,000 page views a month.
So it's a 3-year overnight success, right?
Yeah, exactly.
My biggest community that's kind of rallied around me is through a website that I found. It's another forum, but a lot friendlier forum. And I got to know the forum owner, the website owner. I've spoken at his conference a couple of years ago. And it was through interacting in that form and posting about the podcast and posting about other things and providing value to other people that they started to find me.
Okay.
I don't do a ton of SEO stuff. I don't even write articles really anymore. I just podcast once a week. And it's through that consistency that people have found me.
Okay. Let's talk about the podcast. You think that was an effective growth channel, or pre-med kids listening to podcasts?
I don't know if it was originally. There's obviously still some technical hesitation there.
You're a couple years deep into the show?
Yeah, we started the website in March of 2012. The first podcast episode went live the end of November of 2012. So we're 140, as we record this, 147 weeks in. I haven't missed a week in almost 3 years now. And it's through that consistency. Obviously, iTunes is a wonderful search engine. I ask a lot of people when they tell me they listen, I ask them where they found me. And a lot of them just say they went into iTunes and looked for some medical stuff, and up I popped.
Well, that's great. Yeah, that's a cool avenue for discoverability. I think John Dumas was talking at one point. He said, look, if you Google entrepreneur, I'm on like page 17. But if you search iTunes for entrepreneur, I'm like number 2 or something. So I was like, yeah, it's a different avenue for discovery there. What kind of content are you putting out on the show?
It's mostly interview-based show. It's like I kind of mentioned a little bit ago, I wanted to go out and interview admissions committee members and deans and other people to kind of make it seem like I had that expertise because I had them on.
Okay.
But what I've found from listening to my audience was that they were more interested in hearing stories of people like themselves. So now most of my interviews are other medical students or physicians or pre-meds who have a very interesting path into medicine.
Okay.
They might have had to overcome some struggles, or they had some challenges. And so those are the stories that I tell now, and the audience loves that stuff.
Oh, interesting. Was there an inflection point? Like if you look back at the 3 years of history on the site where things started to take off, when you kind of said to yourself, hey, maybe this could really work. Maybe this could really be a thing. Maybe it was that first $100 AdSense check or something, or has it just been kind of a slow and steady climb?
It's been a very slow and steady climb. My first big monetization came from an affiliate deal that I had with a big test prep company. They came on the podcast. I had one of their top instructors come on, and we offered a coupon code in the podcast that was good for like a month or two.
Okay.
And I got a check for almost $800 for that one podcast episode.
Nice.
And so I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I wish I could get $800 every podcast episode.
Yeah.
And so there are lots of test prep companies that are out there, and I have pretty good relationships with most of them. And so I've done some affiliate stuff with them. But then I started to, through listening to, again, Smart Passive Income, the different people that Pat had on, I was like, I could do that with my community, or I could do this. And so there was one episode that he had, and it gave me the idea to basically create a community around it. This was before I really knew about like the physical community or a lot of these other entrepreneurial communities that are popping up all over the place. Mm-hmm. And so I created what I call the Academy, stealing a name from everybody else, a community for pre-med advising, basically group pre-med advising. Private pre-med advising is expensive, so I utilized the technology and had a group of students come in. They can pay a lot less, and so that's where my first big push into kind of recurring revenue and stuff came in.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the affiliate deals. So start off with AdSense, very low-hanging fruit in terms of monetization, just contextual-based advertising on site. Easy to install. You don't have to worry about selling private ads or anything. And we're kind of seeing a pattern in like this, professional certifications, test prep, nursing, architecture, med school, like where there's a certification that somebody has to pass and there's like preparation involved for this test. I've seen a lot of people have success in helping people along that path. And oftentimes it's like, hey, I did this. This is what I did to succeed at this. This is why you should trust me. Or this is why I failed the first time. Let me show you how to overcome that. It's an interesting interesting way to go. Did you ever go down the route of creating your own like test prep ebook, like Green Exam Academy style?
Not at all. I do have my lead magnet is all about the MCAT, which is the big test they have to take.
Okay.
But I have no desire to get into the test prep world because that test is a beast, and I hated it. It made me miserable, and I'm glad I never have to take it again. But there are people out there that enjoy that, and I'll gladly refer to them and get a commission.
Yeah, so there's okay, so you can set up affiliate relationships with these other test prep rather than try and create it completely yourself. Okay. So tell me about the Academy. This is a membership site for students, basically.
Yeah, for pre-meds. So it's again, a lot of my audience is a non-traditional student, so they don't really have access to pre-med advisors. So a non-traditional student is somebody that's kind of past college. Maybe they're changing careers to go back into medicine. And so they don't have access to the advisors that you may have at a university. And so they join my academy, and we have twice a month live office hours. They jump on. We use the software Fuse Meeting, and it's just a bunch of talking heads, and we discuss things. It's application season right now as we're recording this, so I do a lot of mock interviews with them through the academy. It started off a lot more grandiose than what it has turned out to be, just from what the feedback that I've gotten. But I opened it and people came. I have about maybe 60 members or so in there right now.
And when did you first open the doors to that thing?
It was September of 2013, I believe. And we opened it to about 51 members, paying a whopping $7.50 a month. I had this idea. My coach, I had Jamie Tardy as a coach, or Jamie Masters now, as she goes by, and she kind of yelled at me for this. I thought, well, my target market from interviewing students and doing kind of an analysis of what they would want and need and what they would pay was about $15. And so we opened up with with no content. We said, okay, as a charter member, we'll let you in at half off. And so we opened at 15. We're now up to 37, and I'll probably increase it next time I open it up. It's closed right now.
Okay. What's the strategy behind opening and closing it?
Really, it came down to focusing on one thing versus many. I recently left the Air Force, so I really only had time with everything else going on in my life to work a couple hours a week on the academy.
Okay.
And so I didn't want to worry about onboarding new members and dealing with old members and having all that chaos. So that was the main reason with shutting it down. And then there was also the kind of the good side effect of having the urgency of people going, oh, I need to sign up right now.
Yeah. Okay. It's closed. The doors are closing. Get on in.
And you know it.
Okay. So the membership site, the affiliate side of things, are you doing any one-on-one stuff at a higher price point?
I am now, yeah. So I just, now that I'm full-time with this, I reached out actually I have a waiting list for people that want to get into the academy. And I sent them an email 2 weeks ago now, maybe. Okay. And I said, I'm sorry that you're still waiting. Here's why. But I do have some room for one-on-one people. And so I've taken on several new clients there, offering mostly right now, it's mostly interview prep. Okay. Just because of the season that we're in. Yeah. Everybody's worrying about their interviews. And so I've been doing mock interviews at about $150 a pop, but it kind of works out because it's only 45 minutes. So it works out to about $200 an hour or so.
Yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Yeah.
Do you find that people, like students, are happy to pay? Because I remember, like, I'm in college, I'm kind of broke, but these people are, hey, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be making good money as long as I get in.
Yeah, so there's that fear that I have as the entrepreneur, as somebody that's charging money, is, well, these are college kids, they don't have money.
Yeah.
But they'll gladly pay money for stuff that will help them. And again, going back to my audience, a lot of my audience is non-traditional students. So they're in the workplace already.
Okay.
And so they're back in school full time, but they have some savings that they saved up so they could go back to school. So it's just knowing my audience and knowing that there are some that can pay, there are some that can't. But I had one guy, I did a mock interview with him yesterday, I think, and he only paid for one session instead of $500 for 4 sessions. He only paid for one, and I charged more. I charged $175 for the one session.
Okay.
And at the end, he's like, this was so much more beneficial than I thought it would be. Can I sign up again? I'm like, sure you can.
Yeah,
I'll let you.
Absolutely.
Here's another invoice. Thank you very much. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's his comments to me. He's like, this was amazing. I didn't know this would help this much. And that's what is fun for me.
Yeah, that's great. That's really cool. You doing any ads on the podcast?
I have not gotten any sponsorships. I do have some relationships, which was kind of a cool thing that there's a magazine in my niche, Premed Life magazine. And a year or so ago, we kind of signed an agreement to help cross-promote each other. And so they have my podcast on their homepage. They've basically turned a couple of my podcasts into stories for their magazine, and I cross-promote them in the podcast. There's no monetary gain there. And I talk about one of the test prep companies every so often about going and using, letting them know they heard about the test prep company on the podcast, and they'll save some money, and that's how the referrals work. So around the first of the month, I'll get a PayPal deposit from them, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's always nice.
But I am reaching out for sponsorships. I actually sent a couple emails yesterday to some different companies that I know would be interested in reaching their target audience. So
yeah, it's such a targeted show. It seems like
it is
a good fit.
So that helps.
This is it's pretty cool stuff. Just from a tactical standpoint, what tech are you using to run the membership area?
So I'm using it's WordPress, using Paid Membership Pro. And then there's a form in there, which I might get rid of and just switch over to Facebook groups because it's easier. But I use IP Board for the form. I just love the layout, but it's pretty complicated to get them to talk to WordPress.
Okay. What's next? Now that you got more hours to work on this thing, where do you see it going?
So I'm starting a couple new podcasts after I left Podcast Movement this last year, 2015. I heard NPR and WNYC talk about how well cross-promotion works to support all their shows. And so that got me thinking, well, I have more time now. How can I build a cross-promotion network, basically? And so I went to this original forum that kind of took me in and went to their owner. I said, hey, let's do a weekly podcast, very short form, answering a question every week that somebody posts in the forum.
Okay.
We can record like 5 or 6 of them at a time, and super easy, and we can push them out, and we can cross promote that way. So yesterday I recorded 9 episodes with him.
Oh wow, nice.
And we'll start that pretty soon. And then the Premed Life magazine, I went to them. I said, hey, let's do an audio version of your stories. I'll read the article and then comment on it and do some stuff. And so they're on board with that. It's not a monetary exchange. Not yet. Maybe I might pitch that to them later, but I want to just show some value for them first.
Yeah.
So now I'll have 3 shows. I'm able to cross-promote each other and go from there. You had Naveed on recently. I'm very interested in doing a summit. I bought the domain a while ago, actually, premedsummit.com. So I'm very interested in doing that.
Yeah, some of those results that he shared were just absolutely crazy for that. So that could be a really cool way to expand your list, expand your audience there.
Yeah.
The Premed Summit, patent pending.
Trademark. Hashtag.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for joining me. I really like the podcast. Hey, look, this has been an effective way to do it. Now you can build your own med school like network of podcasts almost. Kind of like, were these guys at Podcast Movement, like the horse podcast? It was like some show about like
Glenn. Glenn the Geek.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh. And he had like 7 different shows, and it was putting up some crazy numbers.
Yeah. He's got 9 shows, I think, and he's got, I think, 5 or 6 on the way still.
Jeez.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
That's pretty good. I can't keep the one show straight, so it's pretty impressive. But no, I like that. I like that tactic, especially, focus on what's working. And you said like, hey, look, I'm kind of almost retired from the written content and focusing on this channel. with most of my energy.
Yeah, the written stuff, I don't know if I'll get back into it. Obviously, I have time now to write, but the podcast stuff is working. And I outsource my show notes, so I have pretty thorough show notes and transcripts for each show. So it's a lot of good written content there as well.
Okay, so yeah, there is something at least something for the search engines to chew on if you're doing some of the the show notes there.
Yep.
Well, awesome, Ryan. Thanks so much for joining me. It's medicalschoolhq.net if you want to check out a really cool example of an authority site built from scratch in a very professional and very competitive area, I might imagine. So, Ryan, thanks so much. We'll wrap it up with your number one tip for Side Hustle Nation.
The number one tip is just to keep at it. You know, there are so many times where I would come home from work, my wife would come home from work. It's a Tuesday night, and I didn't have a podcast for the next day.
Yeah.
After she yelled at me for a little bit, we would sit down and record at like 9:30 at night, and I would stay up and edit it and push it out. And that consistency is what I believe has paid off.
Yeah, keep at it. I think that's great because it's so much easier to start than it is to stay started, to keep going at it. So 3 years in, and hey, you said slow and steady, but now it's a full-time thing and doing well. We'll catch up with you soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Nick.
This edition of the Side Hustle Show is brought to you by Website Magazine, which is the magazine for website success. It's a real print magazine that gets mailed to your house, which I know is pretty old school, right? But it's one of the few magazines I actually read on a consistent basis. And the best part is, Side Hustle Nation listeners can get a 100% free subscription at sidehustlenation.com/WM. WM for Website Magazine. No catch, no strings attached. I've been a subscriber actually the last couple of years and have yet to pay a dime for it. And I still find a ton of value in the issues on everything from apps and analytics to email strategies, blogging and SEO tips, along with social media tools and tactics. So if you're working online, if you're trying to build an authority site like Ryan has, you owe it to yourself to check out this free resource. Again, it's Website Magazine, and you can grab your free subscription at sidehustlenation.com/WM. Now, speaking of magazines, did you catch the couple side hustle ideas that Ryan just kind of casually threw in there, like in passing? Now, the first was reaching out to digital magazine owners to see if they might be interested in producing an audio version of their magazine in podcast form. You've seen Nathan Chan from Founder Magazine start doing this really recently. You could even pitch this Brian Harris style by recording the first episode and sending it to the magazine owner as a preview, and where we talked extensively about this kind of sales tactic or this service business tactic. sidehustlenation.com/87. If you missed that one of the most popular episodes of all time of the Side Hustle Show. The second thing he mentioned, again, just in passing, was reaching out to forum owners. And I think this has huge potential because forums are still such a big part of the online world. And you can say, hey, here's a way for you to reach a completely new audience. Like Ryan said, just answer questions from the forum. You can batch record them. You can knock out 5 or 6 in a day, and you've got content for a week in an hour's worth of recording time. You can use it to cross-promote your own stuff if you're in the same niche, or charge the guy a production fee if you want to do it as a separate business. So lots of fun stuff in this conversation. How Ryan started almost by accident. Hey, we want to give this a shot. The partnership, the teamwork, the camaraderie with his wife. That's obviously huge to have the support of your spouse when you're starting any kind of side hustle, especially a long-term project like this. He joked about it being a 3-year overnight success. So I thought his number one tip of keep at it was very much appropriate. He talked about differentiating from some of the competing or existing sites, and then using them to help drive traffic as well, and the challenge of overcoming the imposter syndrome along the way. Like, hey, who gave me the authority? Who gave me the right to talk about this stuff? Well, no one, but I'm going to do it anyways because this is what I know about. So all in all, fantastic conversation. Be sure to head over to sidehustlenation.com/138 to grab the free PDF highlight reel with all the notes, links, highlights, and Ryan's top tips from this episode. And hey, not only should you trust him because he plays a doctor on the internet, he actually is one in real life. So thank you so much for listening. Until next time, let's go out there and make something happen. And I'll see you in the next edition of The Side Hustle Show. Hustle on.
Thanks for listening to The Side Hustle Show at www.sidehustlenation.com.